we're bringing on one of the most professional men in disc golf. This is the, I believe, I keep saying on-course reporter because all I keep saying is like Terry. I hear Terry. Brian, can you tell us what's going on, Brian? Brian, what's going? We have Brian Earhart with us. First time on Tour Life, man. Hey, thanks for stopping by, man.
Nice to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
How's it going? Where are you at right now?
I have moved to Charlotte. I actually close on my first house next Thursday, and we move in then. So we're just in the RV. Yeah. I'm at an Airbnb right now that some of the operations guys for the tour are checking out of tomorrow. So yeah, life's good. I'm home already.
Dude, congrats. Yeah, congrats on the house. Congrats on the engagement. Lots of things are going good in there.
Absolutely.
That's awesome, man.
Thank you.
You're gonna hopefully it's not too overwhelming with all the stuff coming up, all the planning and all that. So that's the fun part, anyways.
Of course, I mean, it's fine.
I want to jump into it right away. We've had Jeff Spring on where I've been able to ask him some questions about the Disc Golf Network, but I feel like you're like in it. You really are, seeing exactly what's going on. My first question is, it feels to me like the way that they do commentary is backwards.
Okay.
Do you think the way that Disc Golf does commentary is correct, or do you side with me being backwards?
I'd love to know what your definition of backwards is. Maybe that'll help jog my thought process.
So my thought is, you have the people in the booth that aren't on the ground, right? They're only able to see what they can see with the cameras. They should set up the shot as far as, okay, we're going to hole 4. Ricky Wysocki's currently 3 under par. He's throwing his second shot. Brian, what can you tell us? And then they go straight to you, and you walk us through everything leading up to the shot. You walk us through the shot, and you walk us through the result. And then the booth, you have like a Philo or a Nate Doss, someone like that. They then give their, perspective on it, right? That to me seems like it, versus it seems like it's backwards, where the booth is trying to tell you everything. And then at the end, they're like, Brian, is that in bounds? And then they cut to you. And you're like, bro, I don't know. I'm standing by the guy that threw the disc. It's 400 feet away, That's what I mean by backwards.
I see what you're saying. Don't they do a little bit of that in golf? Don't they have like
That's
Faraday?
Exactly how they do it.
They have like Faraday and the other guy like do a lot of that kind of stuff.
I think don't come up with any original ideas. I just take it from stuff that's already been done successfully. That's all. That's my trick.
I'm not saying it has to be an original idea. I think if golf's done it for this long, there's probably something that's working for it. And Faraday and those guys have been doing it for forever. I think we've talked about something like this in the future. I think just the role of the on-course guy is just continuously evolving. I think the big thing for me, like you just said, even if I'm down the fairway and they throw it to me and say, hey, did you see that? Sometimes the courses are shaped really weird to where I might be on one side of the fairway, someone goes into the other side of the fairway. I can't run across the fairway while someone's walking up to tee to tell someone where that is. It's a process of me communicating with them beforehand too. So I have a message thread going with Terry or whoever's in play-by-play saying like, hey, I'm on the tee now. Don't throw until after tee shots. Hey, I'm down the fairway, but I'm on the left side, or I'm down by the OB. And that is evolving. But I think what golf is doing, so they sometimes have 2 on-course guys, don't they?
I mean, they have a lot. They basically have them throughout the entire course, essentially, so that they can kind of throw it to people all over the place. But I don't think they have it 2 on one card. I don't think they're ever going to have 2 people following one card.
But what I'm saying is like, that's a thing already. And we've already, I believe, talked about that being more of a thing in the future. So we don't get into these awkward scenarios where it's like, no, I don't know where that went. I have probably a worse perspective than you sometimes. So, I'd like to do more calling from the ground. The big problem is it can only be done with one card because so much of the rest of the broadcast is in replay, and I'm only seeing 4 players. So if we have multiple people on the ground, maybe someone with Chase to set up shots there, that would be a possibility. So I agree with you, and I think it could be evolved. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, it just seems like you could give so much to the commentary side when I'm watching, because I was watching this past tournament and I've played this course and there was times where I was like, I do not know what is he trying to do right now? And it'd be so nice to have someone, you 30 feet away with your, have your little binder or whatever, and then you're, holding it, covering your mouth, being like, I just got this really tight. Because sometimes too, the camera angle also is on the fairway shooting not in the direction that they're throwing. Yeah. And so you just see him throw it through trees and you don't realize like he just hit a gap that's 4 feet wide. Yeah. Right. Like he's hit a really tiny gap and we don't really get to see that at all. So I would love to see you just get more involved about like what's going on with the shot specifically.
I agree. And I think this offseason, that role itself is going to get flushed out quite a bit more. I think we have a few changes happening with the broadcast because we're kind of seeing these little weaknesses, like, you being a viewer and a player, you're seeing these as well. I think the other thing that is tough is when you're play-by-play, sometimes our broadcasts go in rapid fire mode where if you try to throw it to me when they're set up to be set up, sometimes producer goes, no, we just caught something on chase card. We're throwing it to chase card. And then you look like an idiot as the play-by-play guy trying to set something up that's not even on screen anymore. So I don't know if this is a problem for other sports, but we're still working through, like, production-wise. I guess maybe Terry or Charlie, they're trying to figure out when do I have space to even throw something like that. So producers in your ear trying to tell you, hey, you have room to do this. You're messaging them back and forth like, hey, can I get time to set this up? I wish it flowed more smoothly, and I don't know what the right answer is. Like, is it just something that we should be better at and we should just practice, or is there a method change? It's really complicated, but I think we've done a good job so far. I think On-Course Guy can definitely get flushed out more.
Yeah, go ahead, Yuli.
What about like the way that it's filmed, the way that disc golf is filmed right now, being in the studio and getting to see all the shots? Brody and I have talked about this a lot. Like, my thing with it is, I feel like we switch, and I think Brody agrees. I might have got this from Brody, actually. I think that they switch to the catch cam way too soon. Like, and you don't get a full perspective of exactly what's going on, what tree it hits, if it slides up. Like, the flight of a disc is so beautiful, and I feel like the most captivating thing that we have to show the world, yet we show half the flight, and then we're at the catch cam, and then here comes the disc in. And there's no perspective of how long it was, what the flight was, how it's landing, the angle control that player displayed. I agree. Since you're in the booth and you're in the network, and I think you need to put in a word and be like, hey, we need to we need to maybe catch those the whole flight of the shot would be fantastic. And then if it gets a weird ground play or something, switch to that, and then you can explain how this landed or whatever. I feel like it'd give more talking points.
I agree. You watched Marty McFly back in the old YouTube days, right? When he didn't even have commentary. They had so much of that, so much of just shot behind the player, and you'd watch the entire line flip up. I learned so much about players' play styles just watching from that camera angle. So if I'm being so selfish and I don't know anything about the broadcast, I want almost entirely the shot to be shot from behind the player. My speculation is that obviously we're shooting from live view units, and sometimes the shot just loses quality, like picture quality halfway through, and then the producer goes, throw to catch cam, maybe they have better quality. But I don't know. I personally wish we saw more of that, but I don't know the full factors that caused them to switch. It might just be personal preference, but I'll write something for the suggestion box for you, Yuli. I'll throw it in there.
Another thing that I feel like we miss is that I don't think anybody really thinks about is angle control with the cameras. Like, some angles of putts look like they're 20 feet, but it's actually a 45-footer.
Perspective,
And I think that like, if we could train the cameramen to understand what angles they need to get, and it might be tough to get them in that position just because of where the player is. But if that's the case, the players should be able to deal with the cameraman being in an awkward position as long as he's being still and he's just part of the course at this point and part of like the game. But like, seeing multiple times, like even this last week, of Ricky making this long putt, I couldn't tell if he was 40 feet or 20 feet. And we have the circles that really help. It really helps give you perspective, but it also makes the putt look so easy to where there are other angles that make the putt even look farther, which I think on a marketing standpoint, we should always get that angle as far as making that putt look as most difficult as it possibly can, because we all know how hard it actually is.
Well, what angle is that from your perspective?
I think it's diagonal back.
What I was going to say is I think they need to have this is where I'm talking about like the setup shot. They need to have a shot that is perpendicular with the putt. So it shows specifically like, holy cow, like that's super far away. You don't show that as he's putting, but that's like the setup shot that Brian, you're now saying like, yep, he's about 60 feet. This is it slopes right to left. And then when he's about to putt, then you cut it to right behind. And then you actually have the best angle of seeing the putt of whether or not, because I also think the diagonal putt, the diagonal angle you just said, I don't get any suspense of whether, like, I'm just kind of waiting for it to go in or not. Where if whoever filmed the putt of Ricky on 16, because he was right behind Ricky and where the basket was, I can see it. And I'm like, oh my God, is that turning in? It's turning in. It's turning. Like I can, if that was off to his left, I wouldn't be able to see that at all. And I'm just kind of sitting there waiting. That's
the angle that I'm talking about is diagonal behind.
Oh, okay. So not super diagonal, just a little. Okay. Okay.
And then we switched really quick to the catch cam. No, just kidding.
No, there are like, I don't know if I'm supposed to share this, but I feel like it's totally harmless. I think it's necessary. Like in any sort of media world, there are pictures of like still frames in the media trailer saying like these are optimal angles.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they already have that. My speculation is it's probably really hard, and I'm guessing to get into certain positions, I'm guessing it's difficult. But I know for a fact there's training booklets and training manuals made for this from guys that have worked in pro sports before that have that already lead our broadcast. So if someone misses that, I don't know if it's an experimental angle or they're trying to get something more artful. But I agree with you in that sometimes someone lets go of a putt and you're like, that looks like 10 feet. And they're actually at 35, and it's like, whoa, that's strange perspective for sure.
And one thing that I don't think we always think about is there's 4 players. It's sometimes hard for like as a player to get out of the way to think about now, like video people having to, okay, this guy's putting, and then all of a sudden this guy's putting. You don't even have time to get in position there.
Yes.
So I think it's a weird one because going to twosomes would solve this problem. But when you go to twosomes, we now have way less people we can watch. So it's like
true.
There isn't an easy answer. But I want to shift a little bit here. I want to talk about what you think, being a part of the Disc Golf Network and producing content also on the Disc Golf Network as well. What do you think about the paywall? Do you like the way that disc golf is headed right now, of where we are putting, round 1 for free, and then if you want to watch the rest, we're behind the paywall? Do you think that is are we a pay-per-view sport moving forward?
I think that's a catch-22 because we need the subscriber money to put out the product that we're putting out. But at the same time, if you get on, like we just signed this deal with CBS, what happens when we get on cable? Do we lose all those subscribers? Where do we go if CBS really, really likes what we're doing? So do I like where we are? I love it. I think it's necessary right now, at least from my perspective. But in the future, who knows? I mean, it'd be amazing for us to get in a place where we could have big enough ad revenue, for people to be able to watch it for free. But I think right now we're just still a very small business compared to a lot of other sports. I think you might have mentioned it, or Yuli might have mentioned it. Some guy posted on Reddit, like he worked in like college sports and posted like the budget for like a college football game or something. And you're like, oh my God, that is so much bigger than we get to spend. And we went to like some national broadcasting convention and blew the minds of the people who work with the technology we work with. They're like, you guys are stretching our technology well beyond like what we even could fathom. The Red Bull guys who like, deal with breakdancing and all those other cool extreme sports were like apparently hobnobbing with like our guys. And they were like, dude, you guys are doing stuff that we can't even fathom. They were asking us questions. So apparently, and I don't know this stuff, apparently we're doing a pretty good job with the little budget that we have. So right now it feels like the community still is in a grassroots place where, yes, we are going to have to support what's going on, but I hope we can get to a place where some company goes, wow, this is sick. This is super cool. Let's try to bring this to the next level. And I'm guessing, maybe making it cheaper or more accessible in some way for the rest of the world to see. That's at least, from my limited perspective, what I think.
Yeah, I was looking at the numbers. If you watch on the Disc Golf Network on desktop, it actually has the live numbers of how many people are watching. And so I think the numbers are right around, I watched MPO on round 3, and then I watched FPO final round, and I don't think either one ever eclipsed over 3,000. And it's just like, man, there are so many people that play disc golf. There are so many people that watch Jomez. There are so many people that are consuming. I mean, watch this podcast, right? I mean, some of our episodes get 50,000 listens, right? And so it's like, how do we get more people watching live coverage? But I mean, I don't know. It's such a tough situation. But I appreciate you giving more intel on that behind the curtain a little bit.
That's just what it feels like, at least.
And it is refreshing to hear that we're doing a lot with a little. I mean, that's something that, is a good thing to hear, especially for our listeners, because we have a lot of people with their opinions of Disc Golf Network, and we talk about it from time to time on the podcast. So knowing that even with what we have, like, we're doing the best job that we possibly can is very
sounds
refreshing.
like it.
Yeah.
Sounds like, and it's funny because you guys ever read that book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, when you were a little kid? Do you remember that book, Yuli? I feel like you read that to sleep every night. It's pretty much just like if you give a mouse
cookies to go to sleep.
The book essentially is like, if you give a mouse a cookie, it's going to ask for milk, and if it gets milk, it's going to ask for this, and if it gets this, it's going to ask for this. It feels like sometimes, and maybe the evolution of anything, they get the cookie, they get the milk, and they're like, well, what the heck? This milk and cookies stink. What about this? And I feel like, and Yuli, me and you've been playing since the Disc Golf Planet days when they were trying to grind out live coverage. Like, we've come so far, and I think finally we're like hitting a wall of like, oh wow, we have to deal with some big business problems now. And disc golf used to only be grassroots. So I feel like we're traversing that weird, like, awkward middle ground of like, are we still grassroots? Are we a professional sport? I feel like we're kind of right in between. And some people think we're here. Some people think we're here. So I think we're just kind of having to deal with some weird growing pains. And I think that business side is definitely the big hurdle right now.
Yeah, and if you watch any other coverage from sports similar to disc golf, and what I mean by that is ones that aren't, here's the event, it's right here, right? Football, baseball, basketball, hockey, where it's just, this is the event. They've got tons of if you watch golf, I mean, golf is a perfect example. They have millions upon millions more money than disc golf. Their coverage is far more extensive. I listen to a golf podcast every week. You know what's on that podcast every week? Them complaining about the broadcast.
Yeah.
It's just
That's
the nature
sports.
of the beast.
It's the nature of sports.
Yes, you're gonna have, no matter how good your commentary is, right? No matter how good you are, there are gonna be people that hate it. It's just, it just always is. But we always should be trying to improve and try to get better and better. And it sounds like that's what the Disc Golf Network is doing, and that is good to hear. All right, before we let you go here, you're a busy man. I've been talking to you about a lot of the projects you've been doing. Do you want to share kind of what projects people can either tune in right now that is out there for them to consume, or stuff that's coming down the pipeline?
Sure, man. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, the tour has kind of brought me on as a commentator and also a producer. So I shot 2 seasons of shows this year. One of them was a passion project, which I told you about, Brody, I know for a fact, called Catch. And it was like my desire to just get away from the stress and drama of golf and just like play Frisbee again. And I turned it into kind of like an interview show, and the 6 episodes that we shot for the pilot have been just delightful, and got a bunch of really cool players on: Gannon, Juliana Korver, Germ. And each episode turned out completely different, kind of like when you play catch with somebody. So I think the format is good. When you give someone something in their hands to hold, it's funny what comes out of their mouth. So that was like my passion project that came to life. That's going to be on Jomez and DGN this offseason. And then I shot 12 more episodes of Level Up, which is an instructional series I did with Discraft last year. We did season 2 this year. And that's coming out on the Disc Golf Pro Tour YouTube channel, I believe.
Nice.
But still sponsored by Discraft, but it's kind of like a partnership with them. And yeah, it's probably the final season of instructional stuff that I'll do. Yuli probably can attest. It's really hard to keep coming up with instructional topics that aren't watered down. So I feel pretty proud of the 24 that I did. And then, yeah, we did an interview with Ken Climo. I know you guys did one earlier in the year. They wanted me to do one in the style of my podcast that I used to have. And, you know, you guys know he's a great guy, and it was a great conversation. And we talked a lot about just Frisbee in general, and he told a lot of cool stories, and that's also going to go on the Disc Golf Network this offseason. So a lot of cool stuff in the pipeline, but I'm super excited for next year.
That's awesome. I do want to say too, we're not doing it in the off season, but we're going to bring it back. We would love to have you on debate night. I think having you on would be great to kind of get a different perspective on some of the topics that we talk about. So I'll have to have Trevor reach out to you and whatnot and try to get you on that show. Yuli, you want to hit him? Well, actually, I do want to know about your pet peeves. I do actually. Before we go to Yuli's final question, what pet peeves do you have? Because I think they might be a little bit different than some of us.
Okay. So number one, I have I knew you were going to ask me this. So I was told by fans of your show that I had to get ready for this. So number one is a softer one. Paul and I had a really funny case of this like last year. We were in Charlotte, and we let a solo player play through, and he threw multiples. He threw like 4 drives off the tee when we let him play through. And my jaw dropped, and I looked over at Paul like, what? And he played out like 2 of the shots too. Like, if you're playing through somebody, you get through the hole and you get to the next tee and you leave them in your dust. That's my big pet peeve. I've seen it happen too many times. And then one that's a little bit more, I hate to call it controversial because it's just an opinion I have. I feel like rangefinders should be used in practice only. I really love depth perception as a skill in disc golf. I think it's really cool to challenge players to get as close as they can to OB or close as they can to a tree line and not know the distance. I think that's a really cool skill. And you can do your course prep and you can write the distances of trees and whatnot. But I love when it's tournament time that you have to trust intuition. So that's like my more competition related pet peeve is I hate seeing people range find every single shot. I don't hate them. They're just trying to play to win, but I love that element of our game, and I wish it came back in a more natural way.
That will be the first topic. If you do come on debate night, that will be the first topic.
Sick.
That is a good one right there.
Hey,
I'm going to text Trevor right now.
I'm a rangefinder guy, but I completely agree. I think in the future, and I'm probably going to get fired from Bush now for this, but I think it is a skill, and I think as the sport progresses in the next 10 years, you're going to see good caddies who do that work, which I'm lucky enough to have Brad, and he does it on the course while I play. But to have your caddy go and do that prep work for you while you practice or whatever and be able to write that stuff down. There's a reason why, in traditional golf, they have those guys who have the exact numbers and everything and who can help the player. And I'd like to see the sport get that to there. But before I ask you my question, Brian, you are a fantastic commentator. Your shows are awesome. The work that you put on your on-course perspective is great. And I just want you to know how much I appreciate professional voice like that. It's very refreshing. Not that the other guys aren't, but I think you're really great at what you do. In your playing days, who was a player that you looked at and it doesn't matter what skill set they had, you were a little jealous of, or you were like, man, I wish I had that, or man, that's really nice. Throw a skill set that somebody had out there.
When I first met Conrad, like James Conrad, I was so jealous of the way he threw just the really stock putter shots, because when I first came on the tour, I was like this weird like lefty big germ with like way overly technical, forehand as my stock shot, and I just made the game way too hard on myself. Like I was good on certain courses because I could get away with that style, but over time it's just like I wish I could just throw a putter like James did. I felt like I was okay at it, but I couldn't do it when it mattered. And that's a shot that now that's all I care about throwing. But back when I was competing, I was like, dang, Conrad just does that over and over and over again. It's so easy. And it felt like I skipped like a part of the game. When I was a kid, I found the sidearm and I started getting good at the sidearm and I started doing well in AM tournaments. And I just kind of leaned on that strength until I became pro. So I don't envy the players that come into tour with like more sidearm dominant than backhand, because that's the fundamentals and that's the easiest shot.
Good answer. Dang. All right. Well, I know everyone really enjoyed listening to you, and we definitely want to hopefully have you come back at some point, dive into some other topics as well. And I know we all appreciate what you do. And again, if any of the Disc Golf Network producers or anyone is listening, get this man more involved on the mic during coverage. I want to hear more of Brian. Thank you. But yeah, we appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man. You guys rock. And Paul, I got to just give you a shout out, man, because I remember meeting you at Big Germ's. It was Henry's house, but Big Germ's house when we first met. And we had that long conversation about the Banger GT out in the backyard. And, that conversation led to you wanting me to teach clinics with you the next season. And that's where things took off for me, because someone actually listened to what I had to say. So I can't ever say that I'm self-made in this sport at all, because people like you and Germ and like people that just said, hey, I think what this guy has to say is cool and unique, and you actually cared about it. So I appreciate you guys so much for even giving me a voice when I was nobody. I just loved the game and I wanted to share what I knew with people, and you finally listened. So I appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah, man. Much love, my brother.
Good night, guys.
Man. Have a wonderful night, and good luck with all the new house stuff.
All right. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys.
All right. Take care. All right. Brian Earhart, ladies and gentlemen. Man, we got to get him back on the pod, dude.